afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of estate and letting agency world, and welcome to the January edition of the ICG webinar, where the who's who of prop tech and estate agents and letting agents come together to talk about the hot topics that are of interest to you, the estate and letting agents of this fine island. And today I'm joined by the awesome Amy Shields, who is Mrs. Sprift, the lady who sorts out all the great property information on your properties. We'll come on to that a little bit later. We've got Simon Taylor from Yondell, and he's going to be talking about his monthly reports. So Simon, if you haven't got it to hand, go and get those reports so we can give you an update of the sentiment of what's happening in the market. We've got Christian Byfield, who is a letting agent from Shoreditch. You can tell he comes from Shoreditch because he's got that wonderful beard. He's a hipster. We've got Charlotte Campbell, who is the able agent, very good trainer of estate agents, and her specialization is the well-being of your staff. So we're going to be coming on to talk about that. Got Ben Sellers. He is Mr. Estate Agency website, Mr. Estate Agency marketing, Facebook funnels and all that. We've also got Mr. Viewing himself, Ed Mead, the MD and the CEO and top man of Viewber. Again, very important topic on that because we're going to be talking about the impact of COVID and remaining safe. We've got Ian White, estate agents, Mr. Universe, good looking lad he is, and just everyone knows him, top chap. We've got Bradley Kaiser, I never pronounce his surname. He is from SMS Speedway and he helps estate agents with their communication skills. And the topic of today is the fact is that as we now enter, we're halfway through lockdown 3.0, things have changed significantly and in the estate agency industry, and we've really got to be COVID safe. You know, with regard to all these variants hanging around, we still could be here in months and months to come. So what we need to do is work out, are we being safe with our staff? Are we being safe with our clients, with all our processes, so we can keep this business going and keep people moving? I think the first question I want to throw out to the floor is the moral argument of, should we still be open in the first place? There's an awful lot of businesses out there that have been told to close. Should estate agents be open? So please put your hands up if you have a strong opinion on whether estate agents should be still open. And let's go straight to Ed Mead. So Ed Mead, you are, make sure you WhatsApp yourself off, and you're on now.
Well, I've got no doubt at all that we should be open. We've been given a perfectly good open goal by the government, and we should be doing our best to score. The fact is, you know, anybody who thinks that their industry should be closed down is just putting a gun to their own head. I mean, it's just madness. If the government's given us the opportunity to do it, we should be doing it. There are plenty of opportunities to stay safe. From my own perspective, and I've said it before, we've done over 100,000 viewings since this lockdown started. We haven't had a single reported transmission of the virus. So it is entirely possible to do our business safely, provided people are responsible. So I can't see why we wouldn't.
Let's go to Christian. What have you got something to say?
So look, I think really just backing up what Ed said, I mean, Ed's got some very bold statistics because being Viewber and how they operate. I think just on a community basis, the amount of agents that I talk to on a daily basis through the depository, but also mates and friends and competitors and everything else. And whilst I've heard stories of the odd member of staff getting infected and being locked down, I haven't heard of any transmission cases, as Ed said. And also, given how quick the media is to attack our industry, I think the fact they've not had an opportunity to in the last year on this very subject, at least not with any substance to it, I think again highlights the fact that generally as an industry, we've done an amazing job over the last 11, you know, over the last 10, 11 months of actually, by and large, protecting our staff and protecting our clients and customers.
Okay, but we're not answering the question whether it's morally correct. I'd like to go to Ian White. Ian, on the Property Industry Eye questionnaire, I found the correct question. 55% of people felt that their workplace wasn't being safely operated in a COVID secure manner. What have you got something to say on that one, and add anything else that you want to add to that?
Well, I definitely don't think it's morally correct to be open in a non-safe manner. I mean, I think we'd all have to be idiots to think that that's sensible. But I also think the survey is a little bit skewed between whether it's the owner of the business or somebody employed by the business. But look, the answer to the actual first question, yes, I do think it's morally right to stay open because we've been asked to by the government. We form a very important part of the economy outside just the wider money that estate agents make. It obviously fuels virtually all the trades we can think of. So I think we have a moral obligation to do it safely. But I think if you've got members of staff or members of your customer base that feel differently, well, that's fine. Put them to one side and deal with the ones that feel differently, but in a safe and proper manner. I wouldn't force anybody to work if I was a boss, and I wouldn't try and force any consumer to do anything they felt uncomfortable. All I would do would be to provide a service that was safe, efficient for my staff, my customers, in the event they still wanted to trade under the government's directive that we can.
But listen, I'm absolutely convinced, Ian, that what you've just said is right, that there is a very basic requirement here to keep everybody safe. That's the overriding principle. There's simply no doubt that anyone should be forced. My old business, Douglas and Gordon, which I'm still on the board of, there were a couple of things on social media last week talking about how some of their offices looked a bit full, et cetera, et cetera. And it's amazing how people's comments are skewed by their own feeling. I mean, if you were 65 and a business owner, the chances are you'd be wanting to stay safe and stay away from the office. If people are younger and they feel that they can operate safely, then why wouldn't they continue? I mean, there are so many. I'm very keen to hear from other people here, as I'm sure Chris will let us know shortly. We'll be asking the questions about what the tech-enabled people around this room here can do to help do viewings more safely as we do, and indeed conduct their business more safely.
Just one thing to add on the moral side, Chris, as you correctly said, my last answer wasn't about the morals. I think if we look at how the pandemic has affected how people view their house and what they need from a property, be that decent home working space, be that more outside space for their kids, whatever it is, I suppose the other question is, morally, would it be right that the entire nation had been forced to stay in the housing they were in a year ago, and forced, with all the other problems and pressures that they're dealing with, homeschooling, working from home and everything else, would it be morally right to say, no, absolutely not, you can't move house until this is all over, and you're just going to have to endure it, whether it be 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is? I think if we're talking about morally, I think that there really is our moral justification, is that for the sake of people's mental health, and just getting as much satisfaction from life as they can, given the current climate, I think that fundamentally is our moral justification. We're helping people realign their home setup to hopefully have the happiest sort of lifestyle they can in these really difficult circumstances.
Okay, we're going to go to Ian White now, but I just want everyone else to start thinking, and we'll go to Charlotte afterwards. Is there a difference between, obviously a vendor selling their house has a different motivation to a tenant who's handed their notice in and moving out? I'm hearing that tenants are a little bit more nervous having strangers come around their house. But let's go to Ian White first, and then Charlotte White afterwards. But if you've got any anecdotal evidence on that, what I've just said, do bring that in, please. Ian White, please.
I think, again, just on the moral thing, sort of going down the same line as Christian, that you've got to bear in mind that some people are in properties that they either can't stay in, can't afford to stay in, or are causing significant issues within either their family or other stresses. It would be morally incorrect not to be able to facilitate them out of that problem into something that was more of a suitable resolution. So, but I do think it's also morally incorrect to try and force people that aren't interested in moving to move if they don't want to, or forcing staff who are uncomfortable with the process to be part of the process. But you can conduct a viewing from home virtually using virtual technology with absolutely zero risk to anybody until either a physical viewing is needed. And certainly in the letting sector, I'm sure Christian will back this up, lets are taking place in a completely contact-free environment. There's no moral issue with that. The agent's at home where he's been asked to be. The client is at home viewing the property. The references are done remotely. The viewing's done remotely. The only time the person actually has to make contact with anybody is when the key is handed in. They've got more chance of transmission going to Tesco's to get their loaf of bread.
Okay, Charlotte?
Yeah, I think it's really true. And I think it's that balance morally with dealing with clients who need our support, need to move, and balancing that with the staff and the way the business is set up as well. Because there's a lot of the staff that I'm coming across who are working in branches or working from home, particularly in the lettings and the property management side of the business, that are seeing people very stressed at the moment, whether they're stressed about the move, they're stressed about being a tenant, they're stressed about needing repairs. And there's quite a lot of friction, I think, at the moment. And I suppose it's about balancing that need in the marketplace that we have to do these things, we have to get the repairs, we have to arrange the viewings, with our staff at the moment, who I think are under an immense amount of pressure. As a trainer, I come across an awful lot of agents, particularly in the property management field, and the staff are really under pressure at the moment, really stressed. And I suppose that's the thing that concerns me, that morally business owners really have an obligation to keep an eye on the well-being of their staff, as well as delivering for their clients. Because if you're a property manager and all you're getting is stress and angry tenants and frustrated tenants, the business owner really needs to keep an eye on that member of staff, because having that, if you're a single person working alone in your home environment with aggro tenants or viewers or clients, I think we really have an obligation to be aware about how tricky that is. And whilst I absolutely believe the market should be open, because Ian's right, we've got this demand, we need to fulfill that demand, but I think we need to balance that with the well-being of our teams as well.
Okay, I was going to come on and talk about the viewing process itself, but I think what we're going to do is let's go down the rabbit hole of how our staff are feeling during these COVID times. So let's go down that one. Go into a little bit more detail. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are homeschooling their kids at the moment. Most especially letting agents, they tend to be very perfectionist and you know, broadband and just working on the kitchen table. What are you finding out? And again, I'm going to be coming to others around this table here who employ people who talk to estate and letting agents. How are the staff feeling at the moment? Can we go down that a little bit further?
Yeah.
And more importantly, what can bosses do to mitigate the issues?
I think, first of all, there's such a mix. I deal with people who are trying to juggle the homeschooling and have a very understanding boss who's allowing flexible work. I know a number of people who will start their day very early on, catch up on all their emails. They will work with the kids during the day, and in the evening they will catch up on the rest of their work. I'm dealing with people who are slightly older, who maybe live alone, who haven't got a family or haven't got anybody with them. They're working really long hours. They're going above and beyond to work on behalf of their clients. And I've got clients who will not, you know, their day doesn't end. And I think as a business owner, we need to allow the teams to have that level of flexibility. But I also think there needs to be a structure of support within our teams. And I think there needs to be an understanding of, you know, when you really should switch off your day, because from personal experience, you'll notice I'm in a different environment today. I've kicked the kids out of their TV room and I've set up a space that I can now close the door on, because I felt that being in the hub of the home, in the kitchen and juggling everything was very difficult. So I think from a boss's point of view, they need to make sure their teams have got the relevant tech. They need to have a support network in place so that the team has an opportunity to speak to somebody, and particularly new staff, the new staff we're coming across. Can you imagine how hard it is to be in a new job role, trying to deal with customers who are under pressure, and you don't feel confident enough in your role, and you haven't got anybody instantly to talk to? So in my view, it's a minefield out there in terms of teams, and bosses really need to be aware of that and know their staff and offer the support that's relevant.
Okay, let's go to Ben Sellers. I'm sure you've got something interesting to say on this.
Well, I was just going to say is, you know, one of the things that I'm still finding, I'm speaking to a lot of agents saying, are you guys using video with your team? You know, how often are you using video? And it's actually quite amazing, you know, and I'm talking about the ones that are still working from home for whatever reasons. A lot of them are doing homeschooling, so they have to be there. But they're still not engaging in regular stand-ups. They're not, you know, there is a massive difference seeing one another. I always preached it before the COVID. And I think it really helps. It really makes you feel better. I mean, I've got 3 kids at home, all on Zoom, and they're doing little cookery sessions and everything. And they're loving it because they're seeing their pals, they're seeing their teachers engage. There's no difference, I think, for businesses, and all the successful ones are doing this as a regular basis, and many who have been decentralized like myself for 20 years, it's how we make it work. And I think that you know, you've got to be doing this. So that's my call, is get on the videos.
Good stuff. We'll go to Simon Taylor in a second. Can I just give everyone a massive, massive, huge tip when it comes to doing Zoom calls? Is go up to your top right-hand corner. All of you can do this now if you want to, but anyone watching this, go up to the top right-hand corner of your own little picture, and a little blue box with 3 little white dots will appear. Click on that, drop-down menu appears, hide self-view. And what will happen is your stress levels on your Zoom calls will drop like a stone, because even though you don't keep an eye on yourself, your subconscious does, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of brain power, because it's keeping an eye on you. But if as soon as you switch that off, you obviously, you have to have it on when you come on to start with to make sure that you're not like that. But trust me, your stress levels will drop like a stone. Huge tip for you. And again, here's a massive tip. Coming back to your subconscious as well. The subconscious cannot distinguish between a real person and a TV screen and someone on video. Okay, that's why we like celebrities. We feel like we know them, even though we've never met them. And trust me, you can get a huge amount of empathy when you actually see someone as well as hear from them. So big Zoom meetings. And again, interestingly, Ben, before we come to you, Simon, you actually you were one of the last people that sat on the Watkins sofa before lockdown 1, and you I thought you were on something funny when you were talking about these virtual meetings and video calls, and we've got it on camera, and it's on the Watkins channel, and it's come back to fruition, and now you are Messiah-like, Nostradamus in your approach to it. So we'll just call him Nostradamus estate agent. Okay, let's go live to Simon Taylor.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo a few of the points and actually maybe stress the point that maybe staff are right at the center of all of this, and it comes out a number of things that have been said. You know, there are so many multiple stresses on agency staff for all of the reasons that Charlotte mentioned, and then Ben's comments that they're unsure of how to use video and how to behave on that, and all of that starts to roll, get into a downward spiral that the business then isn't encouraged to offer its customers virtual services. And the reality that we've seen, and I know I've mentioned this before, is that, you know, in lockdown 1, the number of customers who started to ask and expect video services just rose exponentially through the roof. So in reality, ironically, a customer-centric approach could really start with staff here, and staff training, staff reassurance, staff communication. I think it's huge.
Okay, let's go to Bradley, then Charlotte afterwards.
Yeah, we did a survey actually with a large organization through the anonymity of text messaging. So we found that people were more comfortable, more open with their feedback. And there was a 13% staff stress rate of quite severe mental disorders, you know, people ranging in various levels of anxiety all the way up to thinking about suicide, which shocked the organization. But I think it's coping with the change. And one of the things Simon's just mentioned with training, and Charlotte with having a good working environment, I think could go a long way to helping people get more comfortable, and also emphasizing that it's become normal now to be working from home, and you don't have to be as worried about how you being presented and your image online, because if the kids walk in the background, people understand. I think just understanding that the world has changed and reassuring people could go a long way to reducing the levels.
Okay, let's go Charlotte, and then we'll go Ed.
So I suppose the other thing I think about as a business owner, what I want my staff is not just to be reactive that everything's going on around them as well. I want them to have a degree of being proactive. And Amy and I were having a bit of an interaction on Facebook the other day because, you know, as both having been salespeople selling business to business in the industry, the amount of driving in my career I've done, going from one end of the country to another to meet somebody and have a face-to-face conversation, that has dramatically shifted now that we become comfortable on Zoom. And I suppose how much of our teams are comfortable just booking a follow-up Zoom chat with a previous valuation or a landlord on let only, because we've got a bit of time to be proactive and have conversations and develop a rapport. Because as Ben said, the rapport and engagement face to face, as you say, Chris, as well, is so much more powerful than even a phone call. So I suppose it's that balance of we need to protect our staff's well-being, but just because they're at home doesn't mean we don't want them to be a COVID superhero and be proactive and think about generating business moving forward.
Good. Let's go to Ian White, and then we'll go to Christian afterwards.
Yeah, I think the one area where I think bosses do have a big part to play in the welfare of their staff is the expectations of what's achievable under these conditions. So, you know, I think it is obviously right that it's work from home or work from office. It's not be at home and don't work. I mean, if you're collecting pay from the business, there is a requirement to work. And I think Charlotte was saying earlier, there's all different colours of the rainbow in terms of people that this has affected. Some people virtually not at all, and other people have really struggled with it, whether it's a work struggle or a family struggle or just being isolated struggle. And I think the boss's part is to identify where each of their people are and make sure that their job is either dealt with accordingly, or that they're given the relaxation or they're given the furlough option if it's required. But even during furlough, you must maintain proper contact socially and plug the people into the infrastructure of the business, because that mainly is where most people are struggling, is the isolation of all of this. It's not workload, you know, people being busy. We've been busy without COVID. I mean, you know, that's a stress thing that you have to accept as being in a busy work environment, and most people can cope with that. It's being busy and alone that's the problem. So, but I think bosses should realize and understand, yes, they should have expectations and they should make those expectations clear, but they need to be adjusted for the time we're currently living in right now. And the fact that you don't have your team around you, or you don't have all of your team around you, or you're not in the office the same number of hours, etc., etc. And that some customers have down tools and shut their front doors and don't want to talk to us. There has to be an understanding of that.
And it communicates as well, Ian. I think that's the other bit. It has to be communicated. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's the key bit, that's then filtered through to the rest of the team, that they understand what's expected.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we'll go Christian, then we'll go Ed, and then we'll go Amy, then we'll go Ben. So Christian first.
Charlotte beautifully introduced what I was going to say there. I think what the last 10 months has highlighted is something that we all already knew anyway: communication. Right, communication is key. Talk to your staff. You know, like, we've had staff who understandably have been anxious at times about what means this, what means that. Just sit down and have a candid chat. What are they anxious about? What can you rationally explain and mitigate? And then what are they understandably and legitimately worried about? And what can you do to reduce that risk? You know, likewise, we were talking earlier about lettings, and in particular tenanted properties. You know, we get a sort of 50-50 split, in that half of our tenants, when we do want to get in for a viewing, and we do try and have that as sort of a last ditch approach, but sort of half are like, absolutely fine, no problem, we'll go out for half an hour and, you know, we'll go and have a walk whilst you do your viewings. And then the other half come back and go, we don't know how we feel about someone stepping into our home. Now, for us, it's about turning that conversation. So rather than get sort of confrontational about, come on guys, we really need to show the property, I usually just pivot that conversation. We've trained our staff to pivot that conversation to instantly switch to, how's your property search going? And we start having a very friendly conversation about how their property search. Great, how many properties have you been to see? Oh, fantastic, you've been out to see these, and were any of those still tenanted? Great. And then you just drop in after that. So you know, you're comfortable going into other people's homes. Is there a reason why you feel uncomfortable about us bringing people into your home, given the guidelines that we've already explained to you and how we operate? And it's just about, I think, like I said, being less confrontational and having a greater communication about that. And again, you know, right from first lockdown, when the first lockdown hit, within 48 hours, we'd sent an email out to our entire tenant base, which was a real sort of conflict decision for us. Anne and I debated this quite a bit over the first 48 hours about whether or not we should do it. But we emailed out to every single tenant saying, look, whatever's to come, however scary it is, if this impacts you psychologically or in particular financially, don't panic, don't stress, come and talk to us. You know, we'll have a chat with your landlords. All of our landlords are in different situations, so we can't promise you anything, but we can promise you an open dialogue. And I genuinely think that is why we have 0 rent arrears on a single tenancy that we manage, or our let only portfolio as well. Not a single tenancy that we've placed, which is somewhere in the region of 250, 270 active tenancies we have at the moment. We do not have a penny of rent arrears on a single tenancy. And I genuinely think that has all come down to communication. And interestingly, being such a stressful year, looking at our Esther's feedback at the moment, we've got currently our highest ever customer feedback rating from our tenants. And the general consensus in there is that these guys have been great communicators. There have been things we've been worried about, but before we could even ask the question, we've been told, don't worry, this is happening. Don't worry, that's happening.
Okay. What I'm going to do, Ed was next, but Ed, I'm just asking you to just take one step back. I'm going to bring Amy in here because she's been waving at me like a video, and then we'll come to you afterwards, Ed. So ladies first, go for it, Amy.
You're muted, Amy.
First one today.
No, I just goes back to a few points. I think speaking to agents, I'm quite surprised. So as all estate agents generally do, say most of them, the majority have a morning meeting, and that seems to have kind of stopped, even though you can do it on video so easy. So I work with a lot of clients that are doing their morning meetings with their whole team, whether they've got furloughed staff or not, where the whole team still come together in the morning and have their morning meeting. And I've got a lot of agents that aren't doing that. And if someone is working at home, like you said, like mentally, they need to see their team, they need to feel that involvement. The office teams are so important. And I do the same. We do a meeting every single morning at Sprift. That's the sales team. We have guests come onto it. Ian was in our meeting this morning, talking to the team, and it just boosts us and gets us ready for the day. We're all home working, all on our own. So I think that's really, really mentally important to still do that in agency or any company, to have that morning or evening stand up. But also, interestingly, from an agent's point of view, we're working with obviously a lot of forward-thinking agents who are doing Zoom calls instead of phone calls with their clients. So now the age of video has kind of taken over, and I love Ben's concept on this. We've got clients that are doing valuation follow-up, and they're booking in a Zoom call or a FaceTime video with their clients instead of picking up the phone. They're saying, right, I'll FaceTime you at 5 o'clock this evening as planned. And also for vendor updates, like weekly vendor updates, once you've got the client on the market, because the whole conversation goes so much more visual. So you can suddenly be screen sharing their Rightmove and their Zoopla stats right there and then, and they've actually got more engagement in it. I remember going out to see them and getting my little graphs out and saying, oh, here's your click-through rate, and they're not really interested. When you've got it in their screen, you've got so much more of their attention. So I think it's a much better way of working, and it makes the estate agent a lot more efficient. And I think that's one thing that they should continue doing, is doing video calls with their clients rather than going back out weekly or with the vendor update calls. I think it's just a much better way of doing it, a lot more visually and a lot more proactively, and actually it's probably more successful.
Okay, let's go to Ed, and then we'll go to Ben, and then we'll go to Brad. Ed B first, please.
I mean, I think it's very pointedly obvious that a lot of the businesses run by people you see on the screen operate with people from home, working from home, and have done for a very long time. Ben's been working from home for 20 years. He doesn't look mad to me, I mean, I think there's an awful lot of there's a lot to be said for it. Vuber, we've been working like this for 4.5 years, and it's about speaking to all of the people regularly. It's as simple as that. I know it's talked about communication, but communication means the boss calling up the people who are working from home. It only takes one call a day just to say, how are you doing? You okay? Are you completely, have you got anything to say? I'm here for you. That's all you've got to do. It's really not that difficult a thing to do. I mean, I do think that at some point we can move into what is possible at the moment with the extraordinary level of services that are available to people that weren't there before. I mean, one of the biggest things we found at Vuber is that we are able to go into people's, we are able to take over people's office functions. We've had an awful lot of clients who've been responsible, closed the office. Sometimes they're isolating for COVID reasons because someone's got COVID. But the thing they're most frightened of at the moment is importing the virus into their office or into their staff. So they're then unavailable to work. The idea that you can have someone locally to go and do those vital viewings and things for you is unheard of before. That was never possible, to go and book that sort of thing, just to say we'll have someone who lives nearby the property doing all that for us at the push of a button. These sort of things have changed. So the communication thing, I think, is vital. Look at the fact that Ben hasn't gone mad with 20 years of working from home, so it's entirely possible. do that sensibly and look at the services, you know, that are available to you to help you run your business and indeed grow your business at the moment, given this opportunity by the government.
Okay, let's go to the man himself. Well, he's gone mad or not, but he's got a fantastic taste in caps, which at the moment are selling for a premium on eBay. So over to you.
They
Ben.
are actually selling on our website, and we do give some money to Agents Giving for every selfie we get. So there you go. There's the plug. But no, I mean, it was last March that I went on this Rightmove thing to talk about virtual viewings and virtual valuations and preaching about Calendly, bookings, and Zoom. You know, this whole bit that you were saying, Charlotte, about all these staff and well-being of the staff, especially the ones that have been furloughed still. I just can't believe that agents wouldn't take this opportunity to do some crazy amount of training for this new way of working. I mean, literally, as far as I'm concerned, estate agents need to start becoming actors. You know, they need to learn how to perform. They need to have video as second nature, whether it's on a Zoom recorded. And by the way, the beauty that we have with Zoom is we record every single Zoom call and we get an audio transcript to the end of it, which you pop into your CRM. So every other member of your team can know what you said in the last viewing or whatever it is. And indeed, you can send that recording to the husband, wife, partner, whoever it is, so that you don't have to repeat that incredible pitch that you just gave them, either virtual valuation, virtual viewing. So that's one thing that I would say. So, but the other thing is about not only having that communication with your staff, but communicate with your customer base. Use messaging, social media, YouTube, emails, you know, chats and all the other tools that we've got out there to actually tell people what you're doing, how you're making it safe, you know, the percentages, the 100,000 viewers that have not got COVID before, and literally use it. They'll be impressed. They'll remember you.
Okay. Big tip for you when you're doing your Zoom calls is this. If everyone can see now, I'm looking at myself on the screen, but if you look at your webcam like that and often just put a piece of blue tack next to it, it means that you're actually looking directly at the person and there's greater empathy. So if you can find out where your lens is and look at that, you will get greater empathy. And I love the idea of sending the pitch on a video. Great idea. I'd like to go to Bradley and then Ian, and then I want to move on to talk about the actual things that we've been talking about strategy. Let's talk about tactics, about exactly what we can do with viewing. So let's go Bradley and let's go Ian. Make it short and sweet, please.
I think it's important to realize that people don't like change and they feel threatened by change, and it's a very changing world. So one of the best things you could do for your staff is to have a plan, make it real, make it simple, communicate it well. It will motivate people, but also it gives confidence in the business. It gives them confidence that they have a future because they hear about all the economic impacts, and it's, you know, brings them down, especially doom scrolling on social media. So it gives them confidence in you, confidence in the future, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So have a plan and communicate it.
Okay, let's go to Ian White.
I think with the fear of change, which was the part I was going to talk about, which Bradley's just kindly done, I honestly believe that the vast majority of that sits within the industry, not within the consumer base. I think that the move, let's say, to virtual valuations, for me, is an obvious one, and I think it should be one that stays forever, you know, for a certain element of evaluations. But the most of the resistance I've seen from direct clients is nothing to do with the consumer. The consumer experience is very, very high if you do it properly. It's actually that the agent doesn't want to offer it because it means he's got to either learn or be trained a slightly new way of operating, and they're just uncomfortable having done thousands of valuations the old way, if you like, of going face to face. But so I do think that Ben's point around, you know, if you're going to have virtual valuations which are currently safe, you know, it's the safest way to do a valuation. The second safest is to go to the house, walk around, but then do the presentation virtually. And the third safest is to go physically, masked, gloved, and actually have a face-to-face conversation. But there are relevance of safety there. The safety barriers change as you move through that process. But it's the agents that need to grasp the new methods. I had a client that simply communicated to his database that we were open, it was safe, that they'd got a virtual technology platform that enabled them to value the property in a completely safe, free contact manner. The response and the number of valuations and subsequently listings, mainly for lettings, and the others were just stockpiled listings for a later date, but they are nonetheless agreements to act when this is all over. They probably did 4 or 5 lettings instructions and maybe half a dozen to a dozen what I call stockpiled instructions for when the client is more happy about showing people around physically for selling. So the consumer doesn't know that we're open and can operate in a safe, contactless manner. So the first thing you've got to do is communicate that to your people, as in the customers. Then you've got to show your people how to do it and make sure they're comfortable doing it. And then you've got to do it persistently and consistently until you're a rock star at it, because you'll win business.
We'll come to Simon in a second. Did anyone see that webinar, Little Book of PropTech, with Michelle Gallagher and David Mintz a few days ago? Put your hands up if you did. Excellent. Okay, so that was Amy and that's Christian. Now I was on that one, and basically she's got market share in Lancaster itself of over 23%. Okay, her nearest competitor is 11 or 12. And when she went into lockdown the first time, she did virtual valuations. And when she came out of lockdown, she was going to say, right, we'll go back. But her husband says, no, you're not. Who wants to, Christian, pick up the story from here.
Yeah, so it was a fascinating story. Like you said, they adopted it. I think I'm right in saying she was achieving something like an 85% success rating. And I think that's not even just on instruction. That was actually from valuation through to an achieved sale. But like you said, it was really fascinating. They had this incredible success.
Stats out, because you know me, I'm the stat man. They are bang on.
Yeah, good. But what was fascinating, like you said, was they had this incredible success and adoption through lockdown, but yet the moment they had that opportunity to revert to norm, despite that success, their instant sort of reaction was, great, we can go back to how we used to do things. And as you said, right, as you accurately said, John, her partner, her husband and business partner, turned around to her and was like, no, you don't. Let's see, let's stick with it for 2 to 4 weeks. And let's see, obviously, if we have clients really push back and go, oh, no, look, you can come in now, so I really want you to come in, then of course we'll revert to norm. But, as he said, it keeps you safe. We can get more valuations done in a day. And they carried it on and they've maintained that conversion rate. And that's even with other agents doing the normal negative attacking thing of, oh, they're still doing this. Why are they still doing that when we can come in and give you a traditional face-to-face service? And as Michelle accurately said, and she's refined it. You mentioned, someone mentioned earlier about it being like an actor. Michelle in that conversation talks about how at the start of it was terrifying. She found it terrifying about, is she going to come across well? Because she feels like her personality, like all good, I think, valuers, part of your personality and your character is what you feel and believe wins you that instruction as much as blowing the trumpet of the agency you work for or represent. And she was really worried about, is that personality going to come across? And at the start, it was really, really nerve-wracking and et cetera, but she said now she feels almost like a bona fide presenter. And off the back of that, they've now started this sort of local business news channel, which is not just about property. It's all about independent local businesses in the area. And it was headed up by a couple of businesses she knows, but because they'd seen her really jump to this and adapt it and adopt it, and not only adopt it, but do really well at it, she's now been asked to be the sort of the face of this local community, this online local video community. And so yet again, it's putting her in front of more people as both an individual and as a brand. And that sort of feeds into that conversation we're seeing a lot about, is our brands becoming as much about the individual? And I think video and online valuations is all feeding into that. You really can create a bit like they have in America, where you see all the billboards and it's very much about the individual. You see these individuals plastered all over bus benches and on the billboards hanging outside properties. It becomes as much about, oh, that's the person I saw on YouTube, that's the person I saw doing this, I want them selling my home.
The important thing is, Christian, it's not just about the person, it's the value that it's what I've been banging on about for years. It's the value that you create with your videos that get people to attract to you.
Yeah.
You know, that's the magic. Okay. If anyone wants to know what she's doing, just type in the word digital as in online, mayor as in local important person with chain round neck. Type that into Google, and there's shed loads of training videos. Quite a lot from a guy with a beard from Lincolnshire. You might want to check him out, but there's other videos, and it tells you how to do it. Okay, let's go to Charlotte.
I was just going to say, and it's not an all or nothing scenario, is it? It's not like we suddenly have to do everything online or we have to do everything face to face. I think it's about, from my point of view as a trainer, it's that really good questioning skills, that we understand our customer, that we qualify them right well. And once we've done that qualification piece and we understand what they need from us, then we fit our service to match that person. And I think as estate agents, the skill that we have always aimed to have is the better I understand my customer and what they need, I fit my solution to meet that customer. Whether it's auction, whether it's online valuations, whether it's face-to-face viewings on market appraisals, it doesn't matter, does it? But the more we know, the more we question, the more effective we can be. And you can do that sitting in your bedroom, or you can do it sitting in your office. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so we've agreed that we can do online valuations, and if you just type, there's this new website called Google, and you can just type in the word Little Book of Prop Tech. I think it's on their kerfuffle website, and find Michelle, and she actually tells you, if you can be bothered, get off bloody Netflix and actually put some hard work in and actually go and listen to this podcast. It lasts an hour long, and she actually tells you the lines that she tells her owners when people say, can I have a valuation? They say, aren't you coming round? And her conversion rate is amazing. We're going to come on and talk about viewings in a second, and virtual viewings and actual viewings, which we'll bring into the king of viewings, which is our friend Ed Lee. But let's just have a quick word with Ben Sellers. Ben, you were prophetic when it came to this communication thing. So let's listen to what
I just wanted to obviously shout out for a fellow ICG approved members, Focal Agent, who currently, I was on a call with them yesterday. They've offered this smart viewing tool, and I think if you're part of Zoopla, it's free. And it just allows people to book in calendar appointments and fire up, and you can share anything from 2D imagery right through to 3D with your Matterports, sort of agnostic platform. So it's not reliant, you're not tied to Matterport, you're not tied to Giraffe. And I think that's quite key. But I think the other aspect of virtual viewings for me, having Amy on the call here, great bit of Sprift obviously have some fantastic data. Rory from Dataloft has another bunch of data, and it's about being prepared for your call. So you're not just doing the viewing, you've got your Sprift data, you've got your Dataloft data, you've got your low crating schools data, and it's having that ability to have a bunch of tabs open so you can hop around and make yourself, come across as quite a on-it character that's got everything at my fingertips. And I think actually you can blow people away, whereas in the old days, you had your little folders with your little valuation things. It's quite fumbly, a bit awkward on the sofa. Like, am I getting too close or not? So I personally see a massive benefit for utilizing this, at least for one step of your process, even so that you can then go and do the bit in person and be a bit more personal about their property.
Simon, you had something to say about 5 minutes ago, and then we went down a different rabbit hole. So what have you got to add to this?
Yeah, no, thank you. I was minded of conferences we all used to go to years ago, where you'd write down a list of things furiously that you learned, went back to the office and never did any of them because you didn't have the time. And of course, what we're hearing on this call today is change, change, change. And wherever you feel your personal bar is currently set against all the change we're discussing, the best thing that anybody can do is leave this webinar and write an immediate list of what you're going to do to change. The one thing that 2021 is teaching us is that 2020 was not a blip. It wasn't a flash in the pan. I had some wonderful quotes thrown at me last week. That pandemics by their nature are Darwinian. And we all know what that means. But one of the lovely quotes was, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine the world anew. And this one is no different. It's a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. Arundhati Roy, look it up. But it basically says, get your list down. It might be a short list, it might be a long list. There's dozens of things we've heard on this call. Decide what you're going to do to move your bar forward.
Excellent. Ed, let's get some tactical stuff. Actual viewing. So your view for people actually doing virtual viewings with their cameras.
Yeah, I mean, I should think
And
we're probably.
any top tips for the agents out there that they, you know?
Well, I think it's entirely possible to turn around to the owners of property, and it's no coincidence that the rental market has moved much more into the virtual field much more quickly, because the average user is younger. It's a more immediate thing. For sales, the average people buying tends to be older. They have less grasp of the tech, etc., etc. But it's important that we talk about the sales market here as well, which is, you know, for a lot of agents is still where the, you know, a large amount of their income comes from. And you can give your sellers a choice of how you want the viewing to take place. If they're really windy, you say, okay, we'll do it all virtually. And then when someone says, absolutely, I have to see it, we'll get them round and you can leave. You can do an interim one. You know, Vuber does live WhatsApp viewing. So you can simply say to the owner, okay, fine, if you want to leave, if the buyer doesn't want to come into the property, you can have up to 6 people on a call walking around saying, you know, what do you see out of the window there, etc., etc. Or you can do a fully fledged government approved viewing where you allow 10 minutes for the viewing, 5 minutes for sort of airing the property before the next viewing takes place. You are allowed by law to have the person doing the viewing and the member of the household present if you wish. And there are very clear guidelines on cleaning the property. You know, most people leave them open. You know, they leave the doors open, etc., etc. So you touch as little as possible. So you can. We have found anyway that our clients just simply grade us according to what their client needs. It's as simple as that. All you got to do is say, look, we can carry on doing business for you. Where is your level of risk, your level of acceptance of risk, and what would you like us to do? So one can do anything from recording a 360 tour and providing that to the owner right the way through to a live viewing. And there's no reason why any of those shouldn't take place, depending on what the owner of the property actually wants.
I love the idea of having a live WhatsApp call so people can interact saying, can you open the door? So that's a great takeaway from me. Anyone else?
That's completely standard. Sorry, Chris, just to say the reason we use WhatsApp is because everyone knows WhatsApp.
But again, I think it's one of those things, it sounds so simple when you say it, but it's just blown my mind. That's because you get the two-way bit. It isn't just an agent walking around with a bloody camera and go, oh, I wanted to see what's in that corner. Anyone else got anything to add? Charlotte?
I was going to throw a question to the group. Actually, I've seen a lot on Facebook with agents saying they're struggling with day tripping viewing still, and I think that's something important to talk about as to how we think agents should handle that. So that was my question to the group, really, just to say, well, if you have got somebody who's not in a position to proceed, how do we approach it? Because there's been an awful lot of contentious debate on social media about that.
Okay, Christian's got something interesting to say, and then Ian afterwards. I haven't forgotten you, Amy. We'll come back to you.
Got me out there, Chris. Yeah, I mean, in lettings, we're seeing it less coming out of town. I mean, I did have an incident on Saturday where we had several people booked for physical viewings on a vacant property, and just pre-vetting people as they, not pre-vetting, rather re-vetting people as they turned up. And we had an interesting one where a lady had booked to come and see 3 flats that we have. They're all vacant, but all in the same development, rocked up. She told our staff when registering that she could move within 2 weeks. Great, fantastic, booked in the viewing, turned up, having a chat with her on the front doorstep, let slip that actually she can't move till the end of March. To which my response was, I'm really, really sorry. We've obviously made a mistake at our end, but you should never have been booked to come and see these flats because it's not going to be viable for you. She then readily admitted that actually, no, it wasn't our staff's mistake. Having been told by multiple agents she couldn't view property, she had now started lying to agents, saying she could move imminently on the premise that she could then go and see flats, to which I very politely said, there is a very good reason why we're doing that. And I'm sorry, but as much as I have a duty to myself, I have a duty to the 80 flats that are in this building and the residents that occupy them, as well as the concierge that runs the building. And I'm sorry, but I'm not letting you set foot across the threshold of the building, which, you know, her reaction was one that was not particularly delighted with that. But, you know, it is what it is. Like I say, there was absolutely no way we were going to be able to secure a deal between her and any of those landlords. So taking her through, you know, and part of her response was, oh, but, you know, what else is there to do at the moment? Great, we're not an entertainment service. You know, at the best of times, I don't like any of my staff taking people out who aren't able to do a deal, because in my mind, that's a waste of their time, money, and resources for us as a business. But particularly in this climate, I'm sorry, we're not a bolt on to Netflix. We're not a way to pass time when you're bored.
I would pay good money to see you on stage. Right, let's go to Ian White, and then we will go to Amy.
I think it's a question of people before profit. So I really liked Ed's take on the fact, and I would put exactly the same comment to valuations than he did to viewings, which is everyone's got a different element to risk. You can conduct a viewing from a government approved physical viewing in a way that's as safe as can be under those circumstances, right the way through to 100% virtual and probably one or two options in between. Present those options to people and let them pick which one they want to do. And the same applies to a viewing. What I do get frustrated with, I see in the forums on Facebook, and I've seen Charlotte commenting on a few of them as well, funnily enough, we seem to be in the same groups, is somehow a local person with a house to sell is far less likely to infect you than somebody from Manchester that's a cash buyer, because there's something in it for the estate agent. And that's not putting people before profit. It's really simple. It doesn't matter how or who you do the viewing with, as long as you do it in a safe and of course you should be using filtering systems. Is this real? No children allowed. Are you really going to be able to afford this? Will you get through the references? You can't bring all your family around, if it's a physical one. But it's really simple. Have 2 or 3 options from the absolute no touch virtual valuation or viewing, because viewings and valuations form the backbone of agency, plus the people and the teams within it. Have your 2 or 3 offers, communicate to the public at large that's what you're offering, and let them choose which of those 2 or 3 options that you've got. But I do ask agents, COVID or no COVID, please take advantage of the fact that you've been given your diaries back. When this is all over, don't hand the power back. Don't lose control of the fact that you can still have virtual meetings with your staff or your clients, and you can do updates, and you can do price reviews or revisits or virtual viewings, virtual valuations. Don't hand it back. I love Simon's quote about, you know, pandemics, you know, make the human race move forward. I just hope we're part of that. I hope our industry is part of that. I really hope they do.
We're going to go to Amy. We're going to go to Amy and Christian, and then I'm going to all put you on the spot. I want you all to bring up something that you've learned in this webinar, and you all can't mention Simon's bit, but Ian, you can have Simon's bit, okay, because you've mentioned it first. I want you to come up with something that's really blown your mind, that you've learned, that you're going to tell your estate agency clients after this call, that's blown your mind, simple, whatever, from this webinar. So I'll be coming to you all in a minute. Final 2 words before we do that. Amy, then Christian.
Yeah, I was just saying, we work with obviously a lot of agents that have changed their processes and routines, and that's amazing. And there's one that I was kind of mind blown, that they literally are not doing any physical viewings on sales or lettings until the client has done the virtual tour, had the SPRIFT tenants or buyers report. And on the tenancy side with the lets, they actually got sent the application form as well, and had to fill that in, and then they filtered down literally just the top 3 viewings, the top 3 sort of candidates to actually then physically view the property. But actually, you know, on the sales side of things as well, because a lot of the links for the virtual tours and reports that you can receive, you know, SPRIFT reports and lots of others, they're trackable, so you can actually tell if the client's opening them or not. And actually, it was really interesting. I bought the house I'm in now I moved in September, so I was literally moved and offered on a property straight after the first lockdown, and I got sent virtual tours actually by the company I used to work for. I got sent 2 of the houses that I was interested in. This is one of them that I ended up buying, but I watched the virtual tours, and then the agent rang me about 5 minutes after I'd he'd seen that I'd actually watched the virtual tours and said, right, which one is it you want to go and physically view? And that was amazing. So I just think it's, with the technology we've got now, it's like you can track all these links. You know when they're watching the virtual tour, you know when they're opening up their data reports or their emails. So, you know, work smart. And I think just absolutely reiterate what Ian was saying, that, you know, if agents don't take this opportunity to get their diary time back, I remember the day you just, you know, you're on back-to-back valuations, you've even got time to do your vendor care calls, you've got sales progression coming out your ears. Take this time to like really grab your diaries back and manage them properly, and use video to its best advantage, and all the tech out there that you've got available, watching your clients' interactivity with your reports and your virtual tours.
Good stuff. Christian, final word, and then we'll go around the room with our key takeaways from today.
Yeah, I think it's just driven home how important registering your applicants properly is. You know, I've those of you who know me here will know I've never been a big fan of the 8 viewings a day, 40 viewings a week generates 7 offers, generates 3 deals. I know the figures work, but I personally have never been an advocate of it. I think it's quite a simplistic way to run a sales team. And I think from a consumer experience, that's why you often see consumers going, oh my God, I went out with this agent the other day and he took me to 8 properties, none of which matched what I want. Because that agent was just ticking that box of, oh my God, if I do those 8 viewings, I hit my weekly target. We've always taken a different approach pre-COVID, which was we try and show as fewer people as possible a property, and that's just through drilling down in registration. Pre-COVID, we averaged about 3.5 viewings per deal. That's actually slightly increased during COVID. We're currently more about 4.5, but that's more about the fact that the London rental market has changed to more of a tenant-driven market than a landlord-driven market. So they're taking more time and they're shopping around a bit more. But I really hope that agents understand the value of, and it's very, echoes a lot of what Amy was saying, really from a valuation point, but also from a viewing point. Less is more, and with that comes educating clients. We've had clients who in the past have said, oh, well, previously we were with such and such an agent, and in their first week, they showed 40 people my property. You've had it on 2 weeks and you've only shown 5. And it was like, yeah, great. But you disinstructed the last agent because they didn't sell your property after 2 months. So why is it relevant they showed 40 people in the first week? Because all that tells me is they showed 40 people your property, 99% of whom were never going to buy your property. So less is more is my advocacy, and like give that tenant a better experience. Talk to your vendor about genuine viewings that have a genuine chance of getting across the line, or the genuine chance of an offer, rather than just stuffing people through their door to go, aren't we amazing? We showed 50 people your house this week.
Quantity versus quality, as I tell the wife. Right, okay, so round the room, let's start off. So I want a couple of sentences on your biggest takeaway from someone else in this room where I go, wow, I'm going to tell all my estate agents and clients that. So first up, we'll go Bradley.
Right, just a shout out to Christian, actually, and his successes and the digital mayor. What really struck me is you adapt for success, the changes bring opportunity, embrace the opportunity, take the changes, and you can succeed. And that really has come out to me between those who have succeeded and the other times we have heard here of people who have struggled.
Excellent. Let's go to Ian White.
Well, I was very impressed with the stats that I think related to JDG in Lancashire around their virtual valuation conversion rate. I think that's impressive. And I think it's because they've committed to do it wholeheartedly. They're not seeing it as a skip around. They actually see it as part of their process. And I think perhaps, talking to my clients, it'll be more of a question of this isn't just getting around the problem. This is actually improving on what we did. So let's drive that hard.
Excellent. Let's go to Mr. Viewing himself, Ed Mead.
On the negative side, I'm still staggered that there are some agents that are closing their doors and sort of putting their hand up saying, talk to the hand, we can't do anything at the moment. And on the positive side, I love the idea, what Amy said, that people can actually tell when you're opening the links and get straight onto, because nothing works better than getting someone straight away.
Excellent. Let's go to Mr. Tech himself, Ben Sellers.
Well, I think that Ed was actually the person that got this whole subject for today fired up on one of our internal meetings. And I think, hats off to you and your team. Ed, 100,000 viewings with no cases is phenomenal. But I particularly liked you preaching the concept of the video on WhatsApp. Get 6 people in there, really kill, six birds with one stone. It's a great. And if you capture that in some way, you can put it on social media as well. So you've got some content marketing thrown in for good measure.
And the wonderful thing about that, Ben, is when you have open houses and everyone says, "Oh, I don't want to miss out." When you've got 6 people, you're getting that. Oh,
they're all buying.
Yeah,
I think they want it.
Best put an silly offer in. Okay, let's go live to Simon Taylor from Yomdale.
Yeah, thanks. It was a couple of things that most people have said, actually. In times of rapid change, it's almost impossible to over-communicate, but everybody should be trying to over-communicate. And we've talked today particularly about customers, but even more importantly to staff, over-communicating to them. And actually listening to a lot of the stories around the virtual room today, if you're worried about the court of public opinion, beware of the survey of one. You're always going to hear the opinions of your extreme customers and the overt opinions. Gather as much intelligence as you possibly can when you make your decision about what you're going to do.
Interesting, fascinating. And if anyone, I know we never got there, but please do check out the Yomdale Sentiment Report, because there's some fantastic stats in there where the market's going. We can probably look at that in the next. Please do come on the next one, either you or Andy, because it's and everyone's on their mailing list. Do check it out. It is fascinating where the market's going. Let's go to Christian Byfield.
I loved what Ian was saying about listen to your staff and don't force them to do stuff. I think we've often, for good reason, got a reputation as quite a bullish industry, particularly from a sort of managerial sales team running level of like, this is what I'm telling you to do, go out and bloody do it. And I think there's that, a lot more empathy has come out in our industry. And I think actually the value of that empathy, the good sides out of that, rather than, oh, stop being soft. Actually, what it's shown is you listen to your staff, you take on board what they're saying, address the issues that you can address, but then listen to the ones that you can't. You get a team that is more efficient, more effective, more ready to support you and your brand and your business going forwards.
Amy.
I think it's been mentioned by a few people, but change. Embrace it, learn new ways, new processes, implement new everything. Right now, it's the time to do it. And for God's sake, when this all goes back to normal, don't go backwards, and actually just get your diary time back and just keep moving forwards. Let's not go back to how it used to be.
Finally, Charlotte.
I suppose mine was too. It was Simon and Ben, really. Simon was very clear that think of the things that you want your team to know better. What tech do you think they should be using and working with? And Ben's attitude will train them and make sure they know how to use it. So if they're not confident doing a Zoom call, or they're not confident doing a video tour, or they're not confident and from my point of view as a trainer in all areas of the business, decide what you want them to know and then fix it and help them gain that knowledge.
Excellent. Well, boys and girls, we are just after the 2 o'clock mark. So that means that we have come to the end of our 1 hour session. I'd like to thank everyone on this webinar today. I particularly like to thank everyone who's been live watching. I know most of our viewers come afterwards because you're all working hard at the moment. I just want to say that, the takeaway from this is communicate, over-communicate, care. Everyone talks about customer care, and remember, not only our clients are our customers, but our staff are our customers as well. Just care and actually go through and follow through. It's hard work out there, and remember, you might be on your own, but you're not alone. Pick up the phone. Everyone on this would be more than happy to have a chat with you. I speak to these guys on a regular basis. Just pick up the phone. Just because they're a supplier doesn't mean they don't care. They won't try and sell you anything. And really just hang in there. We'll see you in around a month's time. We'll publish it on the ICG website and all on normal social media platforms for the next monthly ICG webinar, where we'll be talking about the next hot topics that will help and guide you and support you through these tortuous times. And remember, if we didn't have the bad times, we couldn't appreciate the good ones. We'll see you in a month's time. So wave goodbye, everyone, and thanks very much.